Hey guys, it's Larry Indiviglia here, and I am with Anthony Carey. Anthony Carey with Function First, and Anthony is the creator, owner, and then some of Core-Tex. What we're going to do here, Anthony has graciously offered some of his time to go through the new generation of Core-Tex. Now, Anthony, is it still called Core-Tex?
Absolutely, still called Core-Tex. Yep.
Okay.
We call this the new one the Core-Tex RT for Reactive Trainer, and then we now have two handrails, so we call that one the Core-Tex Dual with two handrails.
Awesome. So, guys, the purpose of the video and spend some time here with Anthony is just to show you some of the features of this generation of Core-Tex, maybe how you can use it, why you should care to have it at your studio, or to integrate it in with the training that you're doing of your client. So, Anthony, I'm going to leave it to you.
All right. Well, guys, the first thing I want to start with is really the whole concept of what we call reactive training, but more importantly, reactive variability. And variability is something that as biological systems we thrive on, right? If we do too much of the same thing over and over again, it stresses our tissue, it stresses our joints. Our nervous system becomes a little bit bored because it's no longer interesting. So we get efficient, but we get efficient at the specificity of what we're doing. One of the ideas behind the platform of the Core-Tex was to create that variability, right? In other words, I can do 10 push-ups on here, I can do 10 planks where I add movement. They become 10 different push-ups or 10 different planks based on the variability that the design of the Core-Tex has. So if we looked underneath real quick, we call it the belly of the beast, we have these 3-ball transfers. So like a 3-legged stool, you're always in contact with them. That angle, or what we call a tangent, is the same tangent as the bottom of the dome, and that's where you get the patented motion, which is the tilt, the slide, and the unrestricted rotation all at the same time. So the center bumper keeps it from popping out. So those combinations there create pretty much an infinite number of vectors that one can achieve while they're responding to what the platform does. So understanding that variability is just a huge part of conceptually of what we're trying to achieve with the training gives us an environment with which we can achieve that in. So as I had mentioned before, we'll get the feedback. Sometimes people look at it and say, hey, that's too advanced. And then we say, well, you're not looking at it through the right lens. In other words, we have seniors that'll sit on it. We can side lie on it. I can lay on it and have my feet on the floor and bridging type exercises. So how you program it, anything that you can do on the floor, you can do on the Core-Tex. Obviously, there's plenty of things that you're going to want to do and also use the handrail. That's fine. You add the regression of having your hands on the handrail. So we can look at metabolic conditioning, we can look at obviously strength training, we can look at huge core work, and the secret weapon that we always love to talk about with this is the mobility applications of this, because the way that this addresses the tissue and along all those different vectors, you will never reproduce this on the ground on your own. You will never reproduce this with another coach or therapist trying to stretch you, because there's just too many that are there. This allows the individual to kind of eventually seek out and explore for where their tissue needs it the most. Any position you want to get in, hamstrings, quads, hip flexors, shoulder girdle, thoracic spine, glutes, you name it, we can nail it with this.
Interesting. Anthony, just so people know, and it's just a question that came out in my mind, and I'm sure probably after our little quick orientation here, I could probably think of 50 others. Barefoot on the Core-Tex, shoes, what is the...
Whichever you prefer. Part of this new one we have on here is this is actually like a yoga mat, so there's padding, so it's kinder to your knees and your elbows and that sort of thing. So if you're on there on your bare feet, you're certainly going to get that proprioceptive, additional proprioceptive input. But doing it on your shoes is fine, especially if it's just more convenient. Either way, and you're probably, if you're doing a workout on here, you're going to have some where your feet are on the Core-Tex, some where your feet are on the floor. So either way, it works great.
Now, this is a general question. I don't want to hold you to a number of minutes or anything, but I'm going to ask it. Duration of a session on Core-Tex. Would a trainer, I guess it's going to depend, have a whole session using Core-Tex?
We've done full classes using Core-Tex because you can take it all the way from the warm-up all through the different variables that you want to program. Like I said, we can do some metabolic stuff and we can do some strength stuff. And certainly the mobility stuff on there you can do. So if we're doing, very often what we'll do though, and we're not here to say this is the one and only answer to everything, right? We think it's a great aspect and part of what should be programmed in. You could do your mobility where each muscle group or each limb that you're working on, you might do 30 to 45 seconds and then jump around. And then this becomes a station, say for your core work. You're gonna go off and you're moving around the studio for different stuff. So, but we can do up to a 30 to 35 minute workout full body just on this that's gonna kind of tick every box that you need to get in a good workout.
Awesome. Okay. And, one of the reasons I asked that too, because I know there is a movement in the industry, and I know you're aware of it, 30-minute model, you know, as far as for a training model. I just wanted to see maybe where Core-Tex would fit into that.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, one of the things that we do here with Brainstorm Fitness and with Function First is sometimes we will program a class around a particular product, whether it's the Core-Tex, whether it's a Viper, whether it's the TRX, whether it's BOSU. The coaches will program around that, but very often they'll also mix it up because variability. People love the variability.
Awesome. Okay, Anthony, for people who maybe never been on it, never seen it in action, maybe one or two exercises or that you could, you know, possibly
Absolutely, absolutely. What I want to start with is, whenever we have this at a trade show, we're doing demos, people see the handrail, so the first thing they want to do is stand on it. So the first thing that we tell them not to do is stand on it, just so they can see something else. They can eventually stand on it for sure. Okay. But one of the things that we love to do is anything where your hands are on it and your feet are on the floor is going to challenge basically the whole front side of your body, so your core in that respect, right? So I can go anything from a push-up to a Spider-Man push-up to a plank. I can consciously create the motion that I want with the platform, or I can just react as I'm consciously. There's a whole bunch of things that are going to be going on all at the same time. So we'll start with the hands down here, and I'll put my hands right on side of the platform. So quickly what I'll do is I'll just show you kind of a little bit of a lat stretch where we can move and rotate. And here's the beauty of this. Let's say I get that lat on a nice stretch right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a different vector. Your lats have never felt that stretch before. Let me take it that way. And I can do a little scap depression. You can kind of get my shoulder girdle warmed up and my thoracic spine. And that would be just some upper body stuff. And then from there we could take a push-up. But when you do the push-up, you get to add that rotation, right? And then you see this platform do all the different things, and I'm reacting to that. But I could say, okay, I want to shimmy back and forth sagittal plane. I want to go side to side frontal plane. I want to circumduct it as I go down. I want to add a Spider-Man. All those different ways. I could be moving my feet around the platform at the same time while I did it if I wanted to do that. All those are definitely options. One of the other things that I'll show you, Larry, I'm going to scoot it out a little bit so I don't bang on the rings, is, you know, we got a lot of golfers that are starting to take an interest in this, and it only makes sense because it's a rotational one, right? A rotational tool. So to get after our thoracic spine, I'm going to get on here like this, right? So normally when we try to get our thoracic spine, we're doing stuff like this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of crisscross my arms here. Now it's going to come from what we call the bottom up. So I'm going to rotate the feet away.
Oh, nice.
Right? Now not only am I getting this tremendous stretch through my periscapular area and through my thoracic spine, but every time I do this, if the platform is moving, here's what's happening. My pelvis is doing this. My vertebrae are doing this. Different segments are getting engaged and involved. Different tissues getting engaged and involved in every repetition that I do, right? There's the variability. You've never seen the curtsy lunge where you can take it this way and back. This is one of my faves. So as you do that, not only are you kind of doing your sagittal plane stuff, but you've got this acceleration, deceleration, then re-acceleration as you go through with that involved hip as you're doing that. Not to mention if I've got my hands on here, as my lower body's moving, more thoracic spine type stuff there as well, right? And then if we were going to take well, let's flip it around a little bit. I'm going to put my feet on the Core-Tex, and I'm going to put my hands on the floor. Okay. We're going to do like a running man. So now I'm here, and I'm going to, or even like a scorpion, I can bring my knee across.
Oh, wow.
Take it down into a push-up like that. And I'm an old guy, right? Almost as fit as you, Larry, but not there yet.
You'll catch up.
That's my goal. So we could take things where we're looking at fixing some parts on the ground. You still got a ground-based limb or body part, and then you create the change here. So whenever we get that argument from certain populations in our industry, will say, well, everything should be ground-based because you live on the ground. Well, this is flat and hard like the ground, number one, but I can still use this to create a response on my ground-based limbs, right? And still get that variability, still get that stimulation. And novelty is a big thing, whether I'm working with people in chronic pain or whether you're working with an athlete. If you introduce novelty to their systems, it expands their movement catalog, gives them more opportunities for learning
And in your practice, Anthony, you work with a lot of people who, as you could say, sometimes can be train wrecks. They just need a lot of help and
Yes.
a lot of pain, whatever. And from a correct exercise point of view, do you incorporate Core-Tex to an extent, or?
We do, but one of our kind of pillars for the function first stuff is everything that we do with our clients has to be reproducible at home. So if they've got a Core-Tex, which some of my clients do, then we'll definitely program it in. But we also want them to be able to do whatever I give them in a hotel room if they're traveling, or if they're in the office and they need to kind of close the door and do stuff, because these folks need to be doing something every day.
Yeah.
So I actually do have quite a few clients that haven't, but I only program it if they do have it that way, because they got to be able to reproduce it.
And interesting, and we had talked about this before, Anthony, and as far as the market, a lot of people say, well, Core-Tex, you know, it's a piece of equipment that's just in a studio or a rehab facility, et cetera, and maybe that's where you would see it most commonly. But now the in-home market is emerging somewhat.
Absolutely, yeah. And for different reasons. Again, the golf community is starting to see it as something they can do to improve their golf swing, and we've got some folks that they just do it for the mobility stuff. People with back pain, they want to be able to find those kind of ranges of motion that they used to have, and they know how important the hips are when it comes to that sort of thing. So we're seeing it for that reason as well. And you guys probably are aware that even the big box clubs now, the big chains, but the more forward-thinking ones, are really putting in kind of restoration and mobility-based sections within the clubs. Yeah. And we're starting to see an uptick in that too. Some of the big guys are starting to put these in restoration places for the mobility specifically.
Very, very cool. Let me ask you this, and I think it's fair. It's a fairly small footprint. I mean, it doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's like anything else. You introduced one of something in your gym, and it's like, oh, I wish I would have had two.
Right.
And you know, we're just as a real information educational piece, but I think it's important. What's the price point on the new version of the Core-Tex?
Well, that's one of the beauties. We've actually made a better product out of it than what the previous was. Took our cost of goods down. So this one is only $449, where the old one used to be $649. Yep. And then with the two handrails, which we see a little bit more seniors in home or in the rehab, is $495.
Oh, okay. So then you would have an actual extension of a double handrail, correct?
Yep. You can pop a handrail right on this other side of the same frame.
Oh, awesome.
Both handrails pop off just by a little push button here. So we've also, this goes on treatment tables, but even another cool thing is you can have 360-degree access around it when the handrail's off. So you can do all the things that you want to do.
That's an awesome point. In fact, in the facility we're at now here, you see the storage on this, guys? It's pretty easy, okay?
Yeah, 30 inches in diameter is all the top is.
Okay, doesn't take up a big footprint. You're not going to have, you don't need to expand your studio.
Nope, not at all.
Let me just end with this, Anthony, here, and it's like, and obviously we have people who are studio owners, maybe work in rehab facilities, fitness directors, and if they're going to introduce, and I think this is an important question. They purchase a Core-Tex, maybe one or two. Let's just put it at that for now. How would it be best to introduce Core-Tex to like your studio as a value added, as a new piece of equipment? Obviously the trainers would have to get, you know, some type of an education program on that. What would be the best way to get the education for Core-Tex for your staff of trainers, or certainly if you're the business owner yourself?
Every new customer gets a 1-hour educational webinar sent to them, so they'll have access to that, which they can share and watch with the group. We have a really robust YouTube channel, Core-Tex Fitness, where it's all broken out on playlists based on the stuff that you want to do. And we're also putting together an app right now that's going to have exercise videos on it available as well. Larger purchases, we actually have master trainers around the country that will come and do a 4-hour workshop if they needed it. We have actually master trainers around the world that are available to do that sort of thing as well too.
Okay, awesome. Anthony, thanks a lot for your time today. It's a real exciting piece of equipment. It always has been. I've seen it in use at one of the top facilities at Fitness Quest 10 certainly, with Todd doing some of the work with it as well. So we congratulate you on the new one, and
thank you, sir.
We hope it further gets solidified and out in the market, so that people could reap the benefits of this. So it's awesome.
I agree 100%, my friend.
Okay,
thanks
much, Anthony. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.